AITA for exposing my ex-fiancée and my best friend at their wedding? My name is Jake, I'm 29 years old, and I run an electrical contracting business in Colorado Springs. I started at 18, making $12 an hour. I worked like crazy for 10 years, then bought my boss's company when he wanted to retire. I have 8 guys on the payroll, and we handle high-end residential jobs and commercial projects. This story revolves around 2 people I trusted completely. Madison had been my fiancée for 3 years. Blonde, always flawless, working in event planning, which essentially meant she threw parties for rich people while acting like she ran a major corporation. I met her at a wedding she was coordinating. She had that expensive look that screams, high maintenance, but you don't care because wow. Then there was Ryan, my buddy since middle school when his family moved here from California. We played baseball together. We went to trade school together and stood by each other at our respective family functions. He went into HVAC, I went into electrical. We often worked on the same job sites. We shared client referrals and grabbed a beer every Friday. This guy was supposed to be my brother. My first 2 years with Madison were solid. She bragged to her friends about being engaged to a successful contractor and showed off pictures of the incredibly expensive systems I installed. We talked about getting married, buying a house together, the whole package. I was proud of what I had built, and she seemed proud to marry me. She had expensive taste, but she claimed to earn every penny of it. Her business was growing with corporate events, high-end weddings, and birthday parties for oil heirs and tech brothers. I respected her ambition, even when it meant working weekends and taking emergency calls during our date nights. Ryan was crushing it too. He started his HVAC company around the same time I bought mine. We would meet at the brewery every Friday. We compared job site stories. We planned fishing trips. Madison would join us sometimes, and she always seemed very interested in Ryan's business approach. Ryan is always pushing the envelope, she would say after he left. It's impressive how he thinks about growth opportunities. I just figured she was interested because she was also growing her business. It made sense that she would want to understand different strategies. What I didn't realize was that she was already comparing us, and I was losing points for reasons I couldn't see yet. The remarks started subtly. You could probably charge more if you invested in better marketing. Or, Ryan mentioned a networking group for entrepreneurs. It might be worth checking out. It always sounded encouraging. She wanted me to succeed, right? Wrong. You see, the problem with people like Madison is that they are never truly satisfied with what you've built. They always need you to build something more impressive so they can show it off to their friends. A successful business isn't enough. You need a rapidly expanding empire. Otherwise, you're not living up to your potential. The first real warning sign came during a dinner with her colleagues. 8 couples, all corporate types, lawyers, marketing executives, and a couple who owned a trendy restaurant. I was the only one who worked with his hands, which apparently made me the evening's entertainment. When people asked what I did, Madison introduced me with, Jake is an electrician, not he owns an electrical contracting business, or he's a master electrician with his own company. During dinner, someone mentioned an article about blue-collar trades making a lot of money these days. Finally, something I could actually contribute to. Jake could speak to that, Madison said. He makes a very good living for someone in the trades, as if I was exceeding my station in life simply by sitting at their table. I didn't say anything that night, but it stuck with me. That was when I started observing her behavior, and what I found was far worse than I imagined. She steered conversations away from my business successes and toward Ryan's expansion plans. She only mentioned my work to her friends to highlight how different it was from their careers. She treated my expertise like a parlor trick rather than a genuine professional skill. But worst of all, she would complain to me about the stress of her event planning job, then explain to her friends how her work was so much more complex and demanding than technical work. I should have called off the engagement right then, but I was thinking with the wrong head and making classic mistakes. That's why you should never ignore red flags. They are always waving for a reason. The breaking point happened over Memorial Day weekend. She hosted a barbecue at my house, about 20 people from her work plus my crew. I spent the afternoon grilling, making sure everyone had drinks, and playing the perfect host while she networked and took credit for the whole setup. Around sunset, I was cleaning the kitchen when I heard her talking to her friends on the patio. Jake is great, but he's very settled, she said, sounding as if he had found his groove and was perfectly fine staying there. Ryan is always pushing boundaries. He's looking for the next big opportunity. Is that a problem? Someone asked. Not exactly a problem, just different mindsets on life. Some people are satisfied with a steady income, and others want to build something bigger. I stood there, holding plates, listening to my fiancée explain to her friends why I was acceptable for now, but not really ideal husband material. Her tone wasn't mean, it was worse. It was condescending. I love him, she continued. But sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone who truly challenges themselves, someone with a bigger vision for the future. That night, after everyone left, I confronted her. I heard what you told your friends about me being settled. She looked genuinely surprised, as if she couldn't believe I had overheard her public performance review of our engagement. Oh, come on, I wasn't being negative. You are settled, comfortable with yourself, your business, your life. That's not necessarily a bad thing. The way you said it made it sound like I was doing the bare minimum. I'm not settling, Jake. I love you. I just think you could push yourself more if you wanted to. Push myself toward what? She had no answer. What she really wanted, apparently, was already coming over to our house every Friday night and feeding her fantasies about strategic business growth. Summer arrived, and Madison's business blew up. Bigger contracts, longer hours, more stress. She would come home exhausted, complaining about demanding clients and impossible deadlines. The Hill account wants to completely change the theme of their corporate retreat 3 weeks before the event, she ranted. He actually thinks I can just snap my fingers and redesign everything. I listened to her, supported her, and tried to help her decompress. But these conversations always drifted towards subtle comparisons with my job. At least electrical work is straightforward, she would say. The wire goes here, the switch goes there. My job requires constant creativity and nonstop client management. Right, because I absolutely never dealt with high-maintenance homeowners wanting to change electrical layouts mid-installation or general contractors blaming me for their own scheduling disasters. Ryan started dropping by more often during this time. He would stop over while I was still on job sites, supposedly to hang out with both of us, but increasingly to talk business with Madison. She would then give me detailed reports over dinner. Ryan is expanding into commercial refrigeration, she would announce. He's already spoken to 3 potential partners for joint ventures. Good for him. He's studying market opportunities, building relationships with other contractors. It's impressive how he approaches growth. The excitement in her voice when she talked about Ryan's projects was completely different from the energy she had when discussing mine. His strategies were impressive and sophisticated. Mine, apparently, just consisted of staying busy and paying the bills. Around this time, Madison launched her improvement campaign. Maybe I should hire a marketing consultant. Maybe I should pivot to commercial instead of residential. Maybe I should join professional organizations and network more aggressively. Ryan is making connections that really pay off, she would say. You could learn from how he builds relationships. It didn't matter that my choice to focus on residential was intentional. I liked working with homeowners. I took pride in providing custom solutions, and I made a very good living without the headaches of commercial bidding wars. But to Madison, being satisfied was a sign of weakness. I'm not saying change everything. She would clarify when I pushed back. Just think bigger. You're capable of so much more. That had become her favorite phrase. The final straw came on a Friday night in late June. We were supposed to have dinner together, but she called me around 5 p.m. to say she had a client emergency. A venue's sound system went down, and she had to coordinate repairs for a weekend event. Sorry, babe, this might take hours. Let's reschedule dinner. No problem. These things happen. I picked up some takeout and a few drinks, planning on a quiet night catching up on billing. Around 8 p.m., I got a text from my buddy James. Man, I saw Madison and Ryan at Romano's earlier. Figured you were working late or something. Romano's was the fancy Italian restaurant downtown where Madison loved to have her business dinners. 20 minutes away from the venue where she was supposed to be handling an audio crisis. I sat there staring at that text for a solid 5 minutes. Either James was mistaken about who he saw, or my fiancée was lying about her emergency. Given her recent habit of praising Ryan's business talents and finding excuses to talk about his strategies, I was starting to think it wasn't a case of mistaken identity. When she got home around 11 p.m., she was full of stories about the sound disaster. The audio tech finally managed to fix it, but it took forever to diagnose the issue, she said while getting ready for bed. What exactly was the problem? Some kind of connectivity issue, really technical stuff you wouldn't understand. I didn't confront her that night, but I started paying much closer attention to the inconsistencies in her stories and Ryan's casual remarks about bumping into her around town. 2 weeks later, same pattern. She had a meeting with a vendor on a Thursday afternoon that ran long. Ryan mentioned having lunch downtown that same Thursday and running into Madison at a restaurant. Small world, he said. We ended up sharing a table because the place was packed. Maybe it was a coincidence. Colorado Springs isn't huge, and there are only so many places where business people grab lunch. But twice in 1 month was starting to look like a pattern, especially when Madison never mentioned these accidental run-ins herself. I started keeping track of these coincidences without showing it, just paying attention to the details that didn't add up. The smoking gun arrived over the 4th of July weekend. She told me she had to work Saturday, an emergency with the lighting system at a wedding venue. The bride's family is threatening to sue if everything isn't perfect for the Sunday ceremony. I offered to help. Lighting systems are literally my specialty. Thanks, but the venue already has its own techs, she said. You should enjoy your day off. Fine. I spent Saturday cleaning out my truck and updating job schedules. Around 3 p.m., I needed a specific circuit breaker for a job scheduled for Monday. The supply house was closed for the holiday, but I remembered seeing exactly what I needed at Ryan's shop earlier in the week. His business is in an industrial park on the south side of town, not really on the way to anything, and definitely nowhere near a wedding venue. I pulled into the parking lot and immediately spotted Madison's white Audi parked behind the building in the back, where employees park hidden from the street. I sat in my truck, trying to process what I was seeing. My fiancée was supposed to be managing a lighting crisis across town. Instead, her car was tucked away behind my best friend's business, as if she didn't want anyone to see it. The lighting emergency was apparently happening in Ryan's office. What an incredible coincidence. I could have stormed in and blown everything up right then. Instead, I took pictures with timestamps and location data. Then I went home to think. That night, Madison came back with detailed stories about the lighting disaster. Did the electrician you called figure out the issue? I asked. Yes, it took almost all afternoon, but we got everything running perfectly. What exactly was the problem? A wiring issue, really technical stuff. Here's the thing about betrayal. Once you know it exists, you see it everywhere. Conversations that seemed normal suddenly become full of double meanings. Scheduling conflicts that sounded reasonable now look orchestrated. You realize you missed glaringly obvious signs. I spent the next month documenting everything without changing my behavior. I needed to understand the full extent of what was going on. The answer was worse than I had imagined. They had been involved for at least 3 months. The business consultations, the accidental lunches, the weekend emergency calls, all those stories were just cover-ups for what they were doing behind my back. The betrayal hurt, obviously, but what really made me angry was the sheer disrespect. They thought I was too stupid or too naive to notice. I could have confronted them immediately. Instead, I decided to let them think they were getting away with it while I put together my own plan. Sometimes, the best strategy is to let your enemies believe they are winning right up until the moment you're ready to flip the board completely. August was the busiest period my company ever had. The reputation of my smart home systems was spreading, and referrals were pouring in from clients who appreciate quality work. I was booked solid until February, with a waiting list already forming for spring projects. I landed a huge contract, the complete electrical design for a new luxury hotel downtown. A $180,000 project that was going to position me as the go-to contractor for high-end commercial jobs. Madison noticed the uptick in my business, but instead of being excited about my success, she seemed almost annoyed. You work all the time now, she observed while I was updating project schedules. It's a good problem to have. That's how you build something lasting, I guess. But it seems like you're always focused on the next job rather than long-term planning. What do you mean? Market expansion, building partnerships with other contractors, thinking about scalability instead of just taking whatever work comes along. She was repeating Ryan's business philosophy word for word. His HVAC company was expanding rapidly, new employees, talks of opening a second location, bigger commercial contracts. Meanwhile, they were getting bolder with their secret meetups. Madison was working late more and more often, always with plausible explanations about difficult clients or venue emergencies. Ryan kept finding excuses to drop by when I wasn't home, supposedly to borrow tools or discuss joint projects that never materialized. On my end, I started having casual conversations with people in my professional network. Nothing unusual, just maintaining relationships. But I made sure my clients and other contractors knew I was reliable and trustworthy. The guy who delivered quality work on time and under budget. Reputation matters a ton in the construction trades, and I wanted to be well-positioned for what was coming next. The first priority was protecting my business assets. I checked all shared accounts and client contacts to make sure Madison couldn't access anything that could harm my company. I changed passwords, updated banking authorizations, and secured client databases and vendor relationships. If everything blew up, my livelihood was not going up in smoke with the engagement. Step 2. I documented absolutely everything regarding our shared life. Pictures of her contributions to the house, gift receipts, vacation records, even utility bills. I wanted zero ambiguity about what belonged to whom. By observing closely, I started to understand their pattern. They had been carrying on this relationship for months, building an inappropriate connection while maintaining the facade of a simple friendship. But they were planning something bigger than just sneaking around behind my back. I could feel it in the way they behaved when the three of us were together. Too many lingering looks, too many inside jokes, too much familiarity disguised as normal friendship. They were up to something. Then one day in early August, she proposed a romantic weekend getaway. Just the two of us, somewhere beautiful to reconnect after our busy summers. We've been so focused on work, she said. It would be nice to spend some quality time together and really talk about our future. I enthusiastically agreed. I suggested mountain towns, maybe a place with hiking and good restaurants. She seemed thrilled that I was interested in planning something special. What she didn't know was that I had already completely figured out her strategy. A romantic weekend would be the perfect setting for a guilt-free breakup conversation. She would create this intimate vibe, then explain that she had been thinking about our engagement and felt like we had grown apart. She would be gentle about it, insist that nobody was at fault, that we simply wanted different things. She would say she would always care about me, but we needed to be honest about our compatibility. It would all feel like a mutual decision between two mature adults recognizing their differences. Then, after an appropriate mourning period, she would start dating Ryan publicly. Their relationship would seem natural. Two people finding comfort in each other after tough breakups. They would probably tell people their friendship slowly turned into something deeper during that complicated time. Clean, minimal social drama, very Madison. I played along enthusiastically, discussing options for the weekend while quietly preparing my own strategy. If she wanted to control the narrative, I would let her believe she was pulling it off right up until the moment I revealed how much I actually knew about what was going on. But first, I needed more information on what they were really planning. One night in mid-August, Ryan stopped by to return some wire strippers he had borrowed. Madison was working late again, so it was just the two of us on my patio drinking sodas. "You and Madison seem really solid," he said suddenly. "Yeah, things are going well." "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. You guys talking seriously about marriage?" Interesting question coming from someone who was supposedly just my friend. Why would he care about my wedding timeline? Unless he had other plans involving my fiancée. "We've talked about it, probably in a year or two." "Cool. She seems like the type who wants a traditional wedding. What about you? Thinking of settling down soon?" I asked him. "Maybe if I find the right person, someone who really understands the business side of things." "That's important," I replied. "Being with someone who understands your ambitions." "Exactly. You're happy with your business the way it is, which is totally fine. But some people need partners who always push them to go further, you know." And there it was. Ryan had been listening to Madison's complaints about my lack of ambition and agreed with her assessment. The conversation continued for another hour, but I had already heard everything I needed to know. They weren't just messing around behind my back. They were planning a future together. They had convinced themselves they were more compatible, more aligned in their goals, better suited for each other than Madison and I were, which meant they were soon going to make it all my problem in a very public way. It was time to finalize my response. Labor Day weekend, Madison did exactly what I predicted. She booked that romantic getaway we had talked about. We headed to Aspen, a nice hotel, hiking, and quality time away from work distractions. "Just the two of us," she insisted. No phones, no business calls, just focusing on each other. I agreed immediately. I told her I was looking forward to this uninterrupted time after our summer had been completely insane. On Friday night before we left, Ryan stopped by for what he pitched as a quick drink to wish us a good trip. But the visit felt different, like he was there for a specific reason. The three of us sat on my patio talking about work and weekend plans, but I could feel the tension beneath the surface. They both seemed nervous. "You guys really have a solid thing going," Ryan said at one point, which seemed like the most awkward possible thing to say under the circumstances. "We do," Madison replied, taking my hand. "This weekend will be perfect to reconnect." After Ryan left, Madison was unusually affectionate. She cuddled up to me on the couch, talked about how much she was looking forward to this trip, mentioned the restaurants she had researched, and the hiking trails she wanted to try. It felt like a performance. That night, lying next to her while she slept, I realized this was probably our last night together as an engaged couple. Tomorrow, she would end our engagement, and next week, she would be with Ryan. 3 years would be over. My best friend would be gone, and I would be starting from scratch. I should have been sadder, but mostly I just felt relief. The uncertainty and the pretending were almost over, and I could stop acting like I didn't know what was happening. Saturday morning, we loaded up the car and hit the road to the mountains. Madison seemed excited, talking about the itinerary she had planned and how nice it would be to just focus on us for the weekend. We checked into a very expensive resort around noon. We grabbed lunch in town, then spent the afternoon walking around looking at galleries and tourist shops. Dinner is when she made her move. Expensive restaurant, romantic lighting, the perfect atmosphere. "Jake, I've been thinking a lot about us lately," she said during dessert. "About what we both want in life and whether we're still heading in the same direction. Look, I love you and I know you love me too, but I feel like we've drifted apart this year. We want different things now." I nodded as if this was shocking news that had never crossed my mind. "You're satisfied with what you've built, and that's wonderful. You created something stable and successful. But me, I need someone who shares my ambitions, someone who constantly wants to grow and push themselves." "What exactly do you mean?" "I think we should split up. Call off the engagement." She said it softly, reaching out to take my hand, as if she were announcing a tragedy. I know this is hard to hear, but I think we both know we've grown in different directions. We want fundamentally different things for our careers and our lives. I stayed silent for a moment, pretending to process this unexpected revelation. "You know what? You're absolutely right," I finally said. She looked surprised, as if she had expected more resistance or an emotional scene. "I love you too, Madison, but I think we stayed together out of habit more than true compatibility." Relief instantly washed over her face. Everything was going even smoother than she had anticipated. "I'm so glad you understand. I was worried you would get mad or try to change my mind." "I'm not mad. I appreciate you being honest about how you feel." We finished dessert, went back to the hotel, and spent one last night together. Sunday morning, we drove back in comfortable silence. She moved her stuff out that afternoon, only taking what was clearly hers. No drama, no arguments, no claims on shared assets. "I hope we can stay friends," she said while loading the last box. "We'll definitely run into each other," I replied. Small town. After she left, I poured a drink and started making some calls. I had some information to share with people who deserved to know what kind of business partners they were dealing with. It was time to let Ryan's professional network know exactly what they were signing up for. 3 months after our breakup, Madison and Ryan announced their engagement. What a beautiful love story. Their romance had bloomed so quickly after they had both moved on from their previous relationships. A pure coincidence that they found each other during their respective single phases. They set the wedding for Valentine's Day at a very expensive venue outside Denver. Huge production, 250 guests, professional planning, the works. With Madison's background in event planning, everything was going to be perfectly coordinated and Instagram-worthy. I obviously wasn't invited, but in a small town, contractor networks mean I was not totally cut off from what was happening. You see, while they were focused on their secret romance, I was building relationships in the contractor community. The electrical trade is very tight-knit, especially in the commercial sector where reputation matters more than the lowest bid. Word travels fast about who does quality work and who cuts corners. Ryan's rapid business growth came with serious problems that were starting to show. He was underbidding contracts to win them, then cutting costs on materials and labor to maintain his margins. His work was getting sloppy, and complaints were circulating among general contractors. I didn't spread rumors or trash his company. I didn't need to. Bad work speaks for itself, and contractors constantly talk to each other about who to hire and who to avoid for future projects. 2 weeks before the wedding, Tom called me. He was a general contractor who had worked with Ryan on several commercial jobs over the past year. "You still close with your old buddy Ryan?" Tom asked. "We're not close anymore." "Good, because his HVAC work is becoming a total nightmare. The system he installed last month is completely botched. The ductwork is trash. The equipment is undersized. Everything has to be torn out and redone. Oh, and it gets worse. I found out he's having similar issues on 3 other job sites in town. Word is spreading fast in the GC community. Nobody is going to hire him after this." Perfect timing. His business was on the verge of collapsing exactly as he and Madison were starting their expensive life together. But that wasn't even the best part. Madison had been so absorbed in planning her perfect wedding that she completely neglected her own business. She spent months organizing her own event instead of taking care of her existing clients. Several major contracts were canceled because she was distracted and missing deadlines. Event clients don't appreciate planners who are too busy throwing their own parties. Her reputation for reliability was crumbling right when she was going to need a steady income more than ever. The wedding itself was beautiful, from what I heard through mutual friends. Perfect flowers, elegant venue, expensive catering, everything Madison had dreamed of since she was a little girl, right up until the reception. Apparently, Ryan drank quite a bit during dinner and decided to give an impromptu speech about their love story. He started telling everyone how grateful he was that fate brought him and Madison together, how they supported each other through tough times, how their bond grew slowly over many months of friendship. The problem was, the timeline didn't match the story they had been telling people. He was describing conversations and relationship milestones that dated back to when Madison and I were still engaged. Ryan's drunken honesty made it very clear that their relationship started long before our mutual breakup. The reception got very uncomfortable very quickly. People started whispering, connecting dots they hadn't noticed before. By the end of the night, everyone realized my ex-fiancée had been involved with my best friend behind my back, then orchestrated our breakup to cover their tracks. Within a week, the story had spread throughout our entire social circle and professional community. Madison's reputation as someone trustworthy enough to run major events was completely destroyed. Ryan's credibility too. If he lied for months to his best friend, what would he do to his business partners? Combined with his piling professional failures, he was facing simultaneous social and professional ruin. And I was just getting started. Fast forward 18 months. I'm sitting in a fancy steakhouse downtown with Paige, my new girlfriend. We're celebrating because I just landed a $240,000 contract for the complete electrical design of a luxury resort. Paige is everything Madison was not. Brilliant, loyal, self-made, and with zero tolerance for games or drama. She owns a physical therapy clinic in town and makes more money than most doctors. We were halfway through dinner when Madison appeared at our table like a ghost from my past. She looked like she had been surviving on energy drinks and desperation for months. Oily hair, smudged makeup, clothes that screamed Target clearance rack. "Jake, I need to talk to you." Paige raised an eyebrow but stayed perfectly calm. "And you are?" Paige asked. "Madison, his ex-fiancée." "Ah," Paige said, deliberately taking a sip of her very expensive cocktail. "The cheater. How interesting." Madison's face turned red, but she kept going anyway. "Jake, please, just 5 minutes. I've been trying to reach you for months. I was busy building that empire you said I would never be able to build. Everything fell apart. Ryan left me for his secretary last month. I'm going to lose my apartment next week." Her voice was getting increasingly hysterical. "I made the biggest mistake of my life. We were perfect together, Jake. We can be again." Paige watched the scene like it was high-end theater, clearly amused by the desperation unfolding in front of her. "Madison, you were involved with my best friend for months. You lied to my face constantly and manipulated our entire breakup to cover your tracks. What makes you think for a single second that I would want you back? Because you loved me. We were engaged. That has to count for something." It counted in the past. It's history. That's when she really noticed Paige for the first time. She took in the designer dress, the expensive jewelry, and the obvious fact that we were happy, together, and successful. By the way, who is this woman? Paige's expression went from amused to dangerously calm. The kind of calm that happens right before someone gets absolutely demolished. Excuse me? Did I hear you right? You heard me, Madison snapped back. Who is she? Honey, Paige said, leaning forward. Your husband is probably with his secretary right now while you're standing here begging. This man is my boyfriend. Madison completely lost whatever tiny bit of composure she had when she walked in. You think you're better than me? You're just some gym rat who threw herself at him when I wasn't around. Actually, Paige said, setting her glass down with precision. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I own a thriving clinic. I came along when you were too foolish to appreciate what you had. Jake, are you really going to let this woman talk to me like that? She's defending herself, I said, which I should have done more often when we were engaged. You were never good enough for me anyway. Madison screamed, now loud enough for the whole room to hear. I settled for you. You're just a contractor who thinks he's successful because he runs wires in rich people's houses. Paige leaned forward slightly. And yet here you are, literally begging him to take you back. It's quite embarrassing. You should leave. A floor manager approached, his posture politely firm. Ma'am, sir, let's please keep things respectful. If this continues, I'll have to ask you to leave. Watch the language, Paige said softly to Madison. We're in a nice restaurant. Madison turned back to me, switching into total desperation mode. Jake, you know me. She doesn't love you like I loved you. She's just using you until something better comes along. Which is exactly what you did to me. Speaking for Ryan, who turned out to be an even worse business owner than he was a loyal friend. Everything is your fault, Madison yelled, loud enough that every diner turned around. You destroyed everything. You sabotaged Ryan's business. You turned everyone against us. Ryan sabotaged himself by doing terrible work and ripping off his clients. I just happened to know the contractors who had to fix his mistakes. Paige was smiling now. Let me get this straight. You cheated on him. You left him for his best friend. Your husband's business failed because he was incompetent. And somehow this is Jake's fault. You don't know anything about our relationship. I know you betrayed someone who loved you, then came crawling back when your life fell apart. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Madison lunged forward as if she was going to grab Paige, but Paige just shifted slightly in her chair. Athlete reflexes against desperate rage. The interaction would have been very short. Do you really want to try something physical? Paige asked. Because I saw your wedding photos on social media. You looked gorgeous that day. Too bad your drunk husband announced the timeline of your affair in front of 250 people. At that moment, one of Madison's few remaining friends appeared and grabbed her arm. Madison, stop this right now. You're making a scene. Tell them I'm not crazy. Madison pleaded. Tell them what really happened. Her friend looked mortified. I am so sorry, she told us. She's been having a hard time since the divorce. Madison, we are leaving right now. No, I'm not finished. Yes, you absolutely are. She physically pulled her toward the exit. Have a good evening. As she was being dragged away, Madison screamed over her shoulder. This is not over, Jake. You're going to regret this. I seriously doubt it, I replied, raising my glass. The restaurant went dead quiet for about 10 seconds before the conversations slowly started up again. Paige gently clinked her glass against mine. Well, that was entertaining. She seems very stable. She hid her issues a lot better when she had money and status. We finished our dinner peacefully, left a huge tip for the waiter for the dinner theater, and went back to the house we had bought together 6 months earlier. Through mutual friends, I heard Madison moved back in with her parents in Denver and was working at a chain restaurant. Ryan married his secretary, but that lasted exactly 8 months before she divorced him too. 2 years later, I run the most successful electrical contracting business in Colorado Springs. That hotel project I mentioned? It led to 3 more commercial contracts totaling over $500,000. I now have 15 employees, and we are booked solid until next year. We hold weekly safety meetings, and our first pass inspection rate is 98%. The city inspectors recognize our vans and don't give us a hard time. Paige and I got married last October in a small ceremony in the mountains. 30 people, A beautiful setting, an absolutely perfect day. No drama, no uninvited exes crashing the party, just two people who actually know how to treat each other starting their lives together. We bought a house in the foothills with a view that takes your breath away. Professionally and personally, everything is incredibly good. Last week, I was installing a smart home system for a tech executive when my phone rang. Unknown number. But I answered anyway. Jake, it's Ryan. I hadn't heard from him in almost 2 years. The last thing I heard through the grapevine was that his HVAC business completely folded and he was now working for someone else's company. What do you want, Ryan? Look, I know I messed up. I know what we did was wrong, but I'm trying to rebuild my life and I really need work. I was wondering if you had any projects that need HVAC. The absolute audacity of this guy. After betraying our friendship and destroying his own reputation, he wanted me to give him work. Are you calling me for referrals? I'm desperate, man. The divorce ruined me. My business is dead. I'm living in a studio apartment working for $18 an hour. I made mistakes, but I'm trying to do better. I can't help you, I said. Jake, please. I know I destroyed our friendship. I hung up and went back to work. I felt absolutely nothing. That chapter of my life was completely over. The funny thing is, Madison and Ryan probably thought they were upgrading when they got together. She wanted someone more ambitious than me, and he wanted someone who understood business strategy. They convinced themselves they were more compatible, better suited for each other. In reality, they were just two shallow people who confused hustle with progress and networking with actual success. When the pressure hit and true character mattered, they had nothing. The best revenge isn't making your enemies suffer. It's building a life so beautiful that their opinion becomes completely irrelevant. Madison and Ryan can deal with the consequences of their choices, while I focus on the future with someone who actually deserves my time and energy. And speaking of the future, Paige and I are talking about starting our own family soon. She will be an incredible mother, and I can't wait to raise kids who will understand the value of integrity and hard work from the very beginning. Comment. I always find it fascinating how the hardest moments in our lives often push us toward the exact path we were meant to take. Walking away from people who do not see your true value is one of the quietest, yet most powerful acts of self-respect you can practice. You never have to prove your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding you. True healing does not come from getting even or watching others face the consequences of their actions. It comes from redirecting all that energy into building a life that feels genuinely good on the inside. When you maintain your integrity and keep doing the right thing, time will naturally reveal the truth about everyone. Choosing peace over drama allows you to make room for people who will love and respect you just the way you are. I hope you always remember to protect your energy and surround yourself with relationships rooted in honesty. Your peace of mind is your most valuable asset, and you should never let anyone compromise it. Please take care of yourselves and keep building a life you can be truly proud of. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.